Well, Boeing's dispute with the machinists union may be over, but the investigation into the NLRB and if it helped that union make that deal is not over. Congressman Darrell Issa wants to know if a baseless complaint about Boeing's plant in South Carolina was a tactic meant to give the union leverage in contract negotiations. He is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, which is conducting the probe, and he joins us now. Congressman, great to see you again. Thanks very much for being here. The key question, I guess, is, first of all, was the NLRB, which is supposed to be neutral, was it taking sides with the union?
Well, clearly it took sides. Clearly it reached out in a way it never had before and made the assertion that by only adding a couple of thousand jobs in Everett, Washington, and adding 1,000 new jobs in South Carolina, that somehow that was reprisal, or somehow, the equivalent of closing plants if you lost the union vote. Now they've dropped that mysteriously just after the union got what they wanted in Everett, Washington. And what we want to know is, are they part of a negotiation process for unions to get them what they want, or are they the neutral they've been since the 1930s, simply making sure that elections are fair and that reprisals don't happen by employers? That's what they're there for. We want to make sure they do that.
Well, how can you prove this charge? Because essentially you're charging collusion. You're saying that the NLRB was colluding with the unions to come up with a result that would benefit the unions. How do you prove that? In emails or what?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. We start off by asking for, on behalf of the American people, what we have an obligation to do as the Oversight Committee of that branch. And that is, we ask for the evidence that they've been withholding up until now. For quite a while, they've been claiming it was an ongoing court case, basically. Court case is over. We're the Oversight Committee. We exist to ensure that the American people are being protected. We need those documents. We will use all methods necessary to get the documents lawfully and constitutionally. And once we have them, we can evaluate it. But right now, it looks fishy that they were all for suing Boeing before a deal got done and suddenly not afterwards. If Boeing did wrong, this case should not stop. If Boeing didn't do wrong, this case should never have been brought.
So you are going to be subpoenaing the NLRB and perhaps the machinists union to get those documents?
Well, we certainly have already asked for and expect to receive them now that the case is over. I suspect that if we're looking for the union side of it, we would have to subpoena that. Right now, we're looking for the government side, where we have direct authority and an expectation we'd receive it without a subpoena. We'll subpoena if we have to. We'll go to the floor of Congress to make that point. But we shouldn't have to. We probably won't have to. Most administrations, most of the time, have cooperated with our oversight responsibility. And I might mention that the Inspector General over there also has questions, and we're going to work with the IGs. That's part of what we do. It's part of what makes our very small group usually successful, is we work with those agencies within government to get to the truth.
And finally, if there is collusion, if you find evidence of collusion between the NLRB and the unions, what then? What do you do?
Well, there's no reason to unring the bell. It's over. But what we can do is make sure that protections are put in place to prevent it in the future. Boeing was a big company and they outlasted this. But a smaller company would probably have caved, closed the plant, laid off the South Carolinians, and that would have hurt America's competitiveness. So keeping it from happening again, if this happened, is the most important thing. Boeing has come out okay. Boeing can afford the countless millions of dollars they spent in this case. But I think getting to the truth could prevent it from happening to a much smaller and more vulnerable company.
Well, and frankly, other than spending the millions of dollars on legal fees, which is a big expense, didn't they actually win and the unions lose? Because the unions wanted to close down that South Carolina plant. They wanted to get the 787 Dreamliner. Instead, it's going to be built down there in South Carolina.
Well, not quite. Actually, the vast majority of the Dreamliners will be built in Everett, Washington. What Boeing wanted and got in this process was the ability to build a small amount of them in South Carolina, a right-to-work state, a state where they don't expect strikes, and would give them ability to at least deliver a few aircraft if there is a strike. And some of their customers demanded that strike protection. But Boeing also gave a tremendous amount to their unions. Boeing has said repeatedly, it's not about money, it's not about benefits, it's about whether we can deliver to customers these very profitable aircraft that are in high demand for the benefit of their workers and their states.
Congressman Darrell Issa, good to see you, Congressman. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Have me back.
Well, another Washington